So, with this news-based move, we've seen a push up into 28.85. Sellers were active on first test of the 67.5 to 74.5 zone. We got a push down, I think, towards 51.52. And then from there, we saw a push up into 85. You can see that we have this, thick line here, the low from March 6th at 86.75. We have resistance above, and I think that those are still spots where sellers can step in, at least on first test. And I think that, as I mentioned in the morning video, NASDAQ is an interesting market to watch right now. It has some pretty decent resistance overhead in the, roughly the 8,900 to like 9,000 or so. So here's the NQ chart, and we talked about this area being pretty decent resistance in NQ. So that's kind of the area that's being tested right now in the overnight session. So NQ is exhausted into its own larger time frame or strong area of resistance. ES is exhausted into a pretty decent area of resistance. So we have to be skeptical of this breakout that took place in the closing range and in the overnight session. Now, it doesn't mean the market has turned around right away, but just understand that Nasdaq's hitting big resistance here. ES is at some really decent resistance as well, with Nasdaq being at even more decent resistance, right? It's at big resistance right now, and this could be a failure spot in the markets. Like, there's real potential for this to be a spot where larger time frame sellers step in. So we do have to be careful with this breakout attempt, and it's always a breakout attempt the first time it happens. It's not a successful breakout until we've seen at least one or two more days of sustained price action at higher prices. So we're seeing that already in the overnight session. If you look at what NQ is doing, you can see that it pushed up into 89.66.75, right? I mean, it's basically right up into this area. That's where it went, and since then you can see that sellers have been stepping back in a very notable way. So as we head into tomorrow, that's going to be kind of on the radar here. How is the market dealing with this larger time frame resistance? For I think anyone on the larger time frame, this could be a good selling opportunity for them up here. And it doesn't mean that we have to crash right back down, but that scenario would not be off the table. So that's what we're going to be looking for overnight. How well do sellers respond to this larger time frame area of resistance? Because this is really a test for sellers up here. When you're hitting big resistance, short sellers and bears should be jumping in with force at these prices. And we're going to watch and see, does that happen? Because that would be the expected behavior. And if the market doesn't respond at big resistance, then you kind of have to reassess and question the thesis. But as long as this big area of resistance holding, given that the market is also exhausted into it, increases the odds of selling. And that's what we're seeing right now in the overnight session. Is sellers are stepping in at larger time frame resistance. And for that reason, despite the breakout and the rally in today's closing range, I think we should be skeptical of that rally and just be aware that sellers can be active up here. Again, it doesn't mean the whole thing has to fall apart instantly, but if that happens, none of us should be too surprised or shocked. Hey, good morning. Let's go over today's trade plan. So in the overnight session, the market got exhausted into larger time frame resistance, where so far sellers have been active. Heading into the open, the main question is going to be whether this overnight balance breakout from the recent range is actually going to stick, or if it's going to turn into a false or failed breakout because the market tested and found sellers at larger time frame resistance. So on the day time frame, how ES behaves at the 2850 to 54 half support area, which is primarily based on the overnight range, as well as the 2843 to 46 area, which marks the top of the recent balance, is going to help us establish our intraday bias. So if buyers can hold ES above 2843 to 46 or above 50 to 54 half, then the larger balance breakout remains intact. But if we start to see a failure and a breakdown below 2843 to 46, then that would serve as a short-term bearish confirmation, and from there we could get a move back down into 2815 to 21, as well as 2795 to 2905, where buyers can be active on first test, and then we have better support at 2780 to 88, as well as 2746 to 56. Now, in order for the market to put in a big downside directional move, we will need to see sustained downside momentum in real time. The advanced decline line may not be as helpful today because the market is opening on a large gap up. So unless the AD line is rapidly trending lower, I don't think it's going to provide much of a signal. But the NYSE tick is a short-term intraday momentum gauge, and I think that can be quite valuable here, because in order for the market to put in a breakout continuation move beyond the 2877 quarter to 87 quarter area, we will need to see sustained upside momentum. So the short-term bias today is neutral bearish because the market is testing larger time frame resistance, but the intermediate term bias is neutral bullish, and then the bigger picture bias has been bearish, and that continues to be bearish. So today is a real test for the buyers and sellers, and the main question is this breakout going to stick or not? Now, as day traders, it's helpful and valuable to be aware of the bigger picture and the larger time frame areas of support and resistance, but when it comes to execution, we also have to be very mindful of what's happening on the smaller time frame, because there's no point in being right about the bigger idea, but then the execution doesn't work out because on the smaller time frame, maybe we are getting immediate upside momentum. So even though the short-term bias is neutral bearish, and as long as the market is holding below the initial resistance zone, there is that potential of a break back down into 2843 to 46 and the support areas below. We still need to assess the situation in real time as well when it comes time to execute. And we also have to be open to the idea that this breakout could hold and the market may put in a continuation move beyond the initial resistance zone. And in the event that we get a successful breakout above 2877 quarter to 87 quarter, the market could quite easily expand the range into 2899 to 2905, where sellers might step in, but it's not a major area of resistance, and we could head higher into 2920 to 24, where we have a naked VPOC, and that zone also marks the 61.8% retracement from the all-time highs. Given what's happening in the real world and the current economic situation, this is already quite a strong rally and retracement, and larger time frame sellers can be active at the resistance areas above, even if we get a breakout above initial resistance. So in the event that we do break out beyond the 77 quarter to 87 quarter area, sellers can step in at 2920 to 24, as well as every area of resistance on the way up. And as the market pushes higher, it's going to start running into better and better areas of resistance, which will be more attractive to larger time frame sellers. Lastly, today is options expiration, and sometimes that can lead to extra choppiness in the market. It's not something that happens on every options expiration, but at least on the upside, I think if we break out, there is that potential for choppiness because of options expiration. And if we start breaking down and we're seeing big downside momentum, then perhaps we can get more linear downside price action. But right now, there is this kind of tug of war between buyers and sellers happening here. And if larger time frame sellers are going to have a chance at maintaining control, then today and Monday is going to be very pivotal for them. And for that reason, the short-term bias is neutral bearish, and we are going to exercise caution on the long side today. So that is the market context and plan heading into the open. Let's see if the sellers can defend at these areas of resistance, and we'll take it from there.